Hello, welcome to David Joshua Ford Live. This is episode 113, and on today's show we're taking a look at some Canon PTZ user questions that I received while I was on break. I've been traveling and on vacation for a little bit, so it's nice to be back in the chair in New York City. And on today's show we're going to take a look at recalling presets smoothly, how to set up the sort of image settings that I've got for this studio, and also enabling auto tracking for the Canon PTZ. These are all questions that came in while I was away, so I figured I'd do a show about Canon PTZ cameras to just get started and do sort of a refresh on some of the camera side of things. To give you a little bit of an idea of what we're talking about, the Canon PTZ cameras, this works across the models. So the ones that I have here in the studio that you're looking at here is the N300s in the black. They used to be a little bit cheaper. I'm guessing with the tariffs, they've jumped up. I think I bought mine with some deals around about 2,000. I think they retailed at about 2,400. And so they're a fair bit higher there. The N500, which is a great camera, if you've got a bit more money to spend on that, it'll give you a larger sensor. So again, that's a couple of $100 more than it retailed out initially. There's a white version if you need that for maybe more corporate settings. I prefer the black one because it can sort of, in a production environment, sort of blend into the background a little bit more. And then there's the N100, which is basically the N300 without the SDI. So if you want to save, what's that, $700 or something there, then you can basically get the same image quality, same networking capabilities. But plugging in HDMI rather than SDI, if that's fine with your workflow. And then the big boy, not that one, 700. This one, the N700, if you've got the cash, this is a great camera. This is one that I've installed for clients. And that's actually come down. That was 9,600 when it retailed, because I remember buying a bunch of them. So that has dropped a fair bit, which I think was probably gonna drop anyway, and maybe it's come back up. And also what we're talking about today should work with the outdoor cameras, but I've never actually had a chance to play with them because I've never had a $24,000 reason to put one outside. And I haven't played with the power shots, so I don't think it would apply to them. But what we are looking at in the studio here is this kind of camera, which is good image quality, tons of in and out, and importantly, connects into Companion so that you can sort of build it into the rest of the show and run it that way. So let's kick off and take a look at the first question that we have here, which relates to recalling presets and getting a smooth automated on-air maneuver like you saw at the start of the show, and also just what happened there. This one comes from Paul, who says, do you have a video explaining how you get those automated zoom-in moves, looking for a way to program sequential camera movements that can be triggered with a button? So this is the video that we're going to point people to when they ask that question. So I'll take a look here at my console, and I'll jump over to my profile. Excuse me. So this is the camera profile that I've programmed that is available for purchase on my website, which controls 6 cameras. I've only got 2 that are plugged in today. And it will essentially mean you can sort of manually run a show. So I can sort of jump between the presets. These are actually 1 to 8. I've just given them names, but you would otherwise see sort of numbers over there. And they can go up to 36 presets on an additional page. And there's 3 modes that Canon PTZs have to change between presets. In this case, it's presets 2 and presets 3. Is the time mode, which is the one I prefer to use, and so that was a 2-second one that we've got there. There's one that I call repo, which is like reposition. In camera language, in Canon's language, it's called normal mode, I think, and it's more of an off-air maneuver, so it'll just go as fast as it can between whatever position. So it's a bit of an ugly move, but it just gets there really fast so that you could then cut. So you do the maneuver off air, then cut. So it's more about speed and efficiency getting to the next position than it is about an on-air presentation. And then there's 2 drive modes. One was the time that I just showed you with the 2 seconds. And you can adjust this. So you could make like a 10-second maneuver. And so now when I go between these, we get a more of a slow move in between 2 points. The start of my show, I have a 30-second maneuver, and I like using the time drive because I think it's easier to direct talent, in this case myself, around a time slot. So when I have my intro and I'm saying, hi, welcome to the show, I've given myself 30 seconds from the beginning of the camera move to the end of the camera move to say, hey, welcome, this is what's happening, and let's get into the next thing. So it's just more reliable from a presentation point of view to be working with time. But if you do press this button again, you will get speed mode, which is not thinking about the time between 2 points, is just setting it at a constant speed. In this case, it's 1. And so if I go from the close-up to the mid-shot, it's just going to go, this is the slowest one, I think. It's just going to go very slow, and it'll take however long it needs to get there. So that's useful if you just want to have a certain speed of maneuver and you're not worried so much about trying to hit a certain point at a certain time. So these are the maneuvers that we have available. Like I said, this profile that is available on my website has 6 cameras that it can control and is sort of pre-built for you so that you can have a shot box to direct a show. And this is how I direct live streams, both switching the ATEM and because it's got ATEM integration switched into it in terms of being able to, in a program or preview mode, select that preset and put that to where with the ATEM. I'm just gonna put that back to preview mode. And I also do my sort of camera moves through here as well. But let's take a look at over here. And we can take a look at Companion and how we go about setting this one up. I'll just pull these ones down because I was playing around with these before. All right, so what we're trying to do here is to create some buttons that will effectively create that maneuver, and so I'm sort of showing you the back end of that. We can just go create button, we can call it preset 1, and then we can go PTZ 1. I should probably just say at this point, if you jump over to connections and you've added in a connection over here, I've already added mine in here. This is where I've got 6 Canon PTZ connections, and I've just given each one label PTZ 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So that's what I'm searching for when I'm typing in that before. Let's come back here, over here. So I'm typing in PTZ 1, and I'm looking for drive, where are we? Drive, set drive mode. I think it was drive, I thought it was drive mode. Maybe it's recall mode. Please go on set recall mode. Okay, and you can change out which camera you want that to target, which you could build this out for one camera and then copy and paste and adjust for other cameras. And the preset mode is, these are our 3 ones that we can choose from. So remember what I said before about what I'm calling repo, because 4 letters fits on a shot box easier than normal. And I feel like it's sort of camera language for repo to, quickly reposition to something. So that's normal, which is an off-air maneuver, time, which is however many seconds you want to set it for, or speed, which is a constant speed. So in this case, I'm going to use time. And then I want to set and I can see I've typed this in here before, set the drive time, and you can actually set the drive time just like this, or there's also a second action to do with variables, drive time here. If you're ever looking for an action in Companion and you can't sort of type in a shortcut, like you're not getting it, then you can always click on this folder. And if you come over to your module, PTZ1 in this case, then you can scroll down and you can see all of the actions that are available. So, and you just can click, 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 click on however many ones you want, and that'll insert them into your list of actions, and then you can modify from there. So there's 2 drive times here. You can either just set it from 2 to 100 seconds or 99 seconds, or I'll just turn that one off. The other one you can do is, I've got PTZ2 selected for some reason, is use a number. So I could type in 10 for 10 seconds, but I could also, if you want to get more advanced, type in a parentheses brackets and then type in a variable, which we can look at later, like a variable which can contain a number. And so what that means is we can just update that variable for changing the number of seconds of this maneuver without having to create multiple buttons for each, if you want one 5 seconds, one for 20 seconds, then you can just change the variable rather than changing each action. So I'll just leave that at 5 seconds for now. And then the last one you want to do is recall preset. And you want to do recall preset 1 by number. And we're going to do preset 1. And that should be good, which I had as a wide shot. I'm going to do a wide shot like that. And now I should have a 5 second, I'm on a close up here, which is my preset 3. And so when I'm going to shift click just to demo this button, but otherwise it would, actually I can do my, I'm going to keep the screen up, otherwise I can't show you on the Stream Deck, but shift click this one, and you can see I do a 5 second maneuver. And so when you think about this too, this is a button that you could build, give it a nice color, whatever you want to call it. And within this flow of actions, you can build in other things to it. So I could also go copy and paste, and then I could just update this to, I'm going to call this preset number 3. And I'm going to go preset number 3. And instead of 5 seconds, I'm going to do 10 seconds. And so now when I click this one, I'm going to have a 10-second push in to my preset 3, which is saved. So I've gone through these and saved them, which I can probably show you on this one. So when you're setting up your presets, you need to save all of these points. So under my preset, let's stick with the camera 1. So this would be my wide shot, but I also have an offset, which is sort of to show an image out here. And then I can also have ones where I show the desk or some sort of like product shot over, where are we? Here on the desk, if I want to do that. So these are all sort of different points in space that I can then recall, and the maneuver becomes the drive time in terms of how much time I spend between those 2 points. So if you have set 2 points a long way away and you're using the drive speed and it's on a slow one, it's going to take a long time to get there. Or if you set them a long way apart, but you've got a regular sort of 5 second shot, then it's going to be a very fast maneuver to get there. Whereas 2 presets side by side, it's going to look like a slow maneuver over that 5 seconds that we set. So that's kind of how you can set that into a particular button, but we can also take a look at how to get that into the run of show. And I'm just going to give you a little bit of a look at my run of show. So this is what my run of show looks like when I have a show, all the different segments. I have like a pre-show, which is sort of a first look. Then I have a show start, which is when I say hi. And then I usually have sort of 3 segments, a goodbye and a wrap. And so it's kind of how I run it. So the pre-show within this has a whole bunch of things in terms of, playing music, and I should tell you about that one too, actually, the custom trace. And the, what was I gonna say, hyperdeck, and there's just a whole bunch of actions in here. I'm pretty sure my camera is in here somewhere. I've got some Visca cameras in here as well. Where do my cameras go? And so what I'm saying here is that you can build this into a run of show of different buttons which have other actions in it as well. So it doesn't just have to be Canon buttons. So after my pre-show, and I've got that sort of off behind the scenes camera angle from a smaller camera up here, then I cut to my main camera angle, and you can see down here I've got some lighting cues, I've got some ATEM cues, and then this is, here we are. So I'm saying camera PTZ 1, set it to the recall mode, time mode, set the drive time to 30 seconds, and then I want to target preset number 3. and my previous cue had been on preset number 1, so I know I'm going from a wide shot into a close-up, and that's kind of how I run that. But there is one other action that is really cool, which is actually something I developed with Joseph Abrams, who sort of developed this module, something I asked for, and we were able to get into this, which is basically like custom tracing up to 5 points. And this is what I do in my show. So I've got 2 presets, which are, I'm not using it here in this one because I've just got presets 1 and 1. But normally, here we are, preset 2. I'm using presets 9 and 10 to sort of oscillate between 2 points to get a bit more interest. So where that is really useful is if you're using a PTZ camera on a wide shot, and rather than just having a static of a conference or something, you can either have it sort of move slowly side to side just for a bit of interest, or slow zoom in, maybe from like a wide shot to sort of a full shot of the stage. Just that little bit of movement can really give a lot more production value. And you can do that up to 5 points with this custom trace. So let's go back to here and we'll just create a custom trace button. So we're gonna go custom trace. What's cool about this is that I'm pretty sure the Canon module is like 800 bucks if you want to buy that for Canon's version of this, but this is already sort of built into Companion, which is really nice. So we've got 2 commands that we can use, custom trace and then stop the trace loop. I've built this into my profile, something that took me a long time to do, and I really like it, which is, let me just pull this up again. So if you are using my profile, this is what you can do. Let's jump over to the profile. So without having to pre-program anything, so the only thing I have to set, like when I go to an event, you set your camera positions. So I've got, wide shot, mid shot, close up, all that kind of stuff. And then I've got this button here, which is loop, and you can either arm it or disarm it. And if it is armed, then whatever this time is set to is what it will oscillate between. So I've got the close up here is showing the last button that I was pressed, but if I hit the mid shot, it's gonna go 2 seconds and then it's gonna go back in. And so this is like a loop that we can set up. Obviously 2 seconds is not great. So if I turn off my loop, then it will stop after it finishes that loop. So I can adjust this to, we're gonna go to 10 seconds, is maybe a bit smoother, turn my loop on, and now I can set the mid shot here, and it's just a bit slower. So you just gotta find your speed, set your time, and then it will automatically do that loop. And I am pleased to say I've been able to program that into all 6 cameras and all 30, like the first 36 presets for 6 cameras. So any of these ones that you press, it can do that. And you'll see down here it says loop to show you that camera 1 is in a loop. What I can do also is, I'll show you in my loop armed, if we go to recall, and you can also update it on the go. You don't have to stop the preset and go to the next one. So over here I have presets 9 and 10, which is my start positions 1 and 2 basically. And so if I hit 1, it's gonna do a slow pan across to preset 1. I could also adjust my time to 5 seconds just to, just for demo to sort of make this a bit more obvious. And then I can hit the second point. So my points 9 and 10 is to demonstrate that if this was like a wide shot of an event, of like a venue, then you can very quickly, without having to program anything, already within the profile that I built here, you can just set 2 points and then enable loop mode, and then it will go between the points. It also means you can, and I will, if you set this properly, you can, with something like a panel or something, you can actually do this on the fly as well. So like from here, I could go to close up, This works better if it's a bit slower, like if you set like a longer time, but I'm just sort of making it longer to sort of show you what's going on here. Or I could go down to the desk position or the desk position 2. So, and then what else did I have? I had an offset, I have a desk close-up, and then I have a product, desk close-up and a product. Okay, so I could be showing you a product down here, and I got to go between these 2 points. So it just, whatever the last point was pressed is what it will then revert between. So you can see, very easy to change it like that. And I'm going to turn loop active off, and we're going to close up to bring it back to here. Okay, so that's how you can use it on my profile. I love that, and I use that all the time for webinars and panels and like small conferences. It's very easy to do that without having to go into Companion and program anything. But we can go take a look at how we put that together. So we've just created this button. Let's just call it loop. And I'll make the text a bit smaller. Loop. Okay, so we're looking at connection number 1, and we can choose the number of points that we want to have. We can have up to 5 points. I'll just do 3. So if you hit 5, it'll just add more down here. I'm just gonna do 3, and I'll choose some that sort of make more sense. The other thing that's cool is that these presets are numbers, you know, so it's a, you know, preset 1 is my wide shot, that kind of stuff. But you can actually use variables here, and that can be useful for multiple cameras all going to, you know, preset 9. So I've programmed this for shows where like one show will be like a workout yoga show, and I've got 6 cameras, and I want to hit a yoga button, and that's going to use presets in the range of like 11 to 20 or something. So it's going to, you know, update those preset numbers to whatever that variable is. But then a different show, you can just swap out the variable number without having to sort of reprogram all of your cameras. So remember that you can use a custom variable in here. If you're not familiar with that, you have to go to variables, custom variables, and you just type in like PTZ, something like whatever. You can, I got a lot in here. Just come down here, create a name, and then you'll end up with something like this, which is dollars, parentheses, custom, semicolon, and then the name that you created and the parentheses there. So that is what you're using in here. Dollars, custom, PTZ. This is not the right one, but you know, IP is like, that would be a custom variable. I'm just gonna stick with 1, and on, so it's gonna go to 1, and then it's gonna do I don't want a 30 second, let's just go 5 seconds. And then it's gonna go to, let's go to preset 3, which is my close-up, and that's gonna happen over 5 seconds. And then we're gonna go 2 seconds, and we're gonna go to my, what did I have for, let me just check my, 1, 2, 3, offset desk left and right, desk close up. So I'm going to go to 8 would be like a product shot, for example, down here. And then it's going to go back to the wide shot. Now, start position, you can do first or last preset, first preset, and you can also set this move to start position at max speed before beginning of sequence. I quite like this because it means that you can, when you're building along, like when you're programming along a sequence and you're starting this loop, you probably want it to get to that first position as quickly as possible. So that's kind of that normal recall repo position. So if this is in your chain of actions, then it's going to go to that first position very quickly and then take the time to execute that loop. And then it means that you can build in other commands like an ATEM, you know, waiting 3 seconds and then putting it on air, rather than if you don't have that on, then it will just take however long to get to that first position. So not enabling that can be useful if you're using as more of a, you know, switching between on-air loops and you want to have things slower in a more, you know, easier way. Just delay before starting trace. You could do 2. I usually prefer 3, just because if you're at if your PTZ camera is sitting at a very extreme angle, like say this is your stage, but you got a preset which is like an audience shot zoomed in, then it has to do a full whip around and to get to that position. So if you're doing a longer sequence, I think 3 seconds is safer. And then you can do loop manually until stopped, and normal would be, you know, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and pendulum would be 1, 2, 3, 2, 1, 2, 3, 2. So you can choose the sequence within which you want to do that. And then you can have another button which we call stop. And I would make that like that, and we go custom loop trace, stop custom loop trace, PTZ1, and you can also add this in custom traces running, so invert it to see what it will look like. So this is actually, and then I'll re-invert it so it's not running. So this should be doing our little loop that we created here. So I think I've set this all up correctly, and then I'll stop it when I want to stop it. So let me go to close up, and you can see I've got my buttons here, and I'll start my loop like that. So it's gone very quickly to first position, went into my power zoom, and then it went down to the product, and then it's gone back to the wide shot, and I had different times in there, remember? And then it's gone in, and it's doing the loop. So you could build 5 points in here and, you know, make it slower. So this is a really great way to set up a wide shot, particularly if you're not trying to follow coverage, and we can get to tracking in a bit. But if you just want sort of a wide shot that has more interest, then you can set this up to do that. And then this is in the loop, and if I hit stop, it's just disabled the next loop. So it's still finishing the sequence, and when it gets to the next point, it's going to stop there. So let's come back to me there. So hopefully that helps give an idea of how to program Canon PTZ presets, both in point to point, if you're just manually executing that, or in this custom trace loop, which is a really neat way of getting a more complex presets maneuvers out of your camera. I think I'll just see if I got any questions there before we move on. Excellent. All right, let's jump on to the next section, which we're talking about image settings and adjusting the Canon PTZ image settings. So I'm going to explain to you basically the look I have here in the studio and how I've, I guess, partly done the lighting, but also with the Canon PTZ, how I've set it to just get this look out of the box. So I'm not doing any post-production on this or any other application to control the brightness or the contrast or whatever. This is what the camera is streaming out. So this is all within the Canon camera, and this one comes from Shuval, who had messaged on the, I've got a Canon PTZ Facebook group, if you want to join that. I should have a link somewhere. If you search it, I think there's 2 Canon PTZ groups. The smaller one is the one that I'm running. If you want to join that, that's a good place to ask questions about Canon PTZ cameras. And he was saying, care to share your camera settings? I'm fuzzing around my 3 N300s for my podcast studio and doesn't really like the results that he's got so far. And so I was on vacation when I got this message, so I didn't really have, it's kind of hard to explain if you're not sitting in front of the tools. So we can take a look now at how to get the cameras set up. Let's see what I've got on setting page for, I gotta set my camera control, and we can jump over to, I think we just jump straight to my computer. because I can talk to you on this one. So I have accessed my camera at the IP address. So my camera is set to 7.61, that's what this camera is here. And then you've got basically these first few tabs along here is going to set the exposure. I mean, you can set like automatic, like if I hit auto, it's, this is what it's gonna do. And I can probably even, I go like this, is that right? There we go. This will show you the difference between the output image of the, well, you probably can't quite see what I'm doing under there. Let me just go back to that. I'll just stick with this image. So this is aperture priority, shutter priority, but it's, I prefer to use manual where possible. And I'm pretty sure that's the right settings. Let me just jump back in, just see if so hit my color. I have a preset that saves the colors, and I'm just gonna recall that one. Now we can jump back into there. Okay, so this is the manual setting here that I set. You can set the iris. You can do this on the Stream Deck too, but I'm just gonna show you on this because not everything is in there. I've got my ND off, and so part of what I was saying with the lighting is, particularly if you look at like the N300 has a 1/3, I think it is. Where is it? Sorry, 1.23 sensor. So it's got a smaller sensor than the 700 and the, where are we? The 700 is going to have a 1-inch CMOS sensor. So it's going to let in more light. So you're going to have, better low light capabilities with that, better image from these bigger cameras. Likewise, the N500 is probably not totally like the 700. It's got the same sort of 1-inch CMOS sensor, but it's only going to give you 1080p 60 out of the SDI. It'll give you 4K out of the HDMI. So if you're in a workflow where you want 4K SDI, then you're going to need the 700. But the 700 and the 500 cameras are, where are we? Are going to give you better image quality, and the 300 and 100s are going to give you the image quality that you are looking at over here. So set your iris, and you can also set your gain. If you boost the gain, you're going to get a lot more noise. So see all this noise down here. So that's where you probably want to try and keep it down. I think I run mine around about 6 just to give me a little bit of leeway on the, like as I'm adjusting on the go. But ideally if you can run it at 0, then you're gonna have less gain in there. I've set my shutter speed to 1/30th instead of 1/60, mostly just to get a little more light in. And then you can use flicker reduction if you want, if you've got a lot of screens there. White balance and color. Okay, so I've set this to daylight. I've got the benefit of, I think if you look in my studio, I can control the lighting in this environment because I've got a daylight softbox here, and I've got a hair light, and then I've got colored lights on the background, which is, I think this one you can see. So that's my 2 colored lights. So the environment that I'm in here is very controlled in the lighting, so that certainly helps if you want to sort of preset the lighting. And then you can just do your maneuvers point to point without changing the lighting. And what else have I got? I think that's about it for the lighting. Let's come back to this one. Okay, and then, so that's daylight. We've got the color temperature, so I've said that I've locked that at 56, and I don't actually have any shift on the magenta green here. The white balance, red and blue gain is at 0, and this is probably where you get the look out of the camera, is just this matrix gain. So what I've got that at 15, So if I go more extreme, it's getting more colorful. If I go less extreme, less colorful. So this is sort of, if you're looking a bit pasty out of the box, like this would be the camera out of the box, then you can just boost that up a bit. So that'd be a saturation. I think I had it on 15. So you get like more color without it being too punchy. Next ones are all 0, and color matrix. I thought there was more there. Nope. There's the contrast gone. Okay, and then image quality. There we go, image quality details. So gamma, I've set this to normal. If you go 709, it's going to change. How does that change it? A little bit. I think standard is going to have a little more crunch to it. It's a little more crunch to it. And then the BT 709 is probably a little less crunchy. So standard has, like you'll see up here, it gets a little more crunchy in the background there. So I just wanted something that looked a bit more finished. You know, 709 gamut, and then you can have either video, which is not as vibrant, or neutral, which is more vibrant. So I just wanted a more finished look as though it's sort of being graded. Okay, now under the image quality details, sharpness level. So, I mean, this is a good point with these cameras. You're not going to get an amazing shallow depth of field out of them. You probably can if you're sitting closer to camera. So if you imagine sideways, I've got my camera and I've got the wall, and I'm probably sitting in the middle. But if I was closer to camera, then I would get a greater sort of depth of field bokeh out of here. But for the dynamics of the studio and to be able to, let me just pull up this one, you know, pull up like a mid shot, and it's kind of a wide shot, or something that's fully wide. Push this one out of shot. This is where I wanted to place it. So I'm going more for coverage here than I am for shallow depth of field. You probably get a little bit better out of that on the N700 and 500. And remember, of course, the more you can set your iris wide open, the more you're going to get the soft out of focus look in the background. The main thing to counteract is, I think it's around about 2.8. If you fully zoom in, let me just go in here. If I keep zooming in, let me just go in, 2.6, 2.8. Okay, so you'll see down here, now that my face is fully in focus here, 2.8 at the full extent of the lens. And so sometimes you might actually want to set your camera, your iris to 2.8 if you are going to a full length. I've got it set to 2.4 because I'm not really going in that far. And it just means that you can keep the iris constant rather than having it sort of change while you're going between presets, like if you're zooming in and zooming out a lot. So good point back here is that sometimes rather than going full 1.8, or what's this, 2.0, can I go any wider? Yeah, so if I go fully wide, I can get to 1.8. So if your shot is just kind of here and then you just sort of, you know, moving around a bit on a wide angle lens, then by all means go for the 1.8, but you'll probably find as soon as you start to zoom in, you're going to be, you know, 2.4 on this kind of shot, or if we get in a bit, 2.6, 2.8 by this point. So maybe just set it there. Same thing with the gain, set the gain. Okay, image quality details. So my point here was that the setting a bit of sharpness can kind of, let me see if I fully boost this. Do I like that? Probably not. You're not going to get a great look at this through this little preview here. I probably need to get my little camera back up. I wonder if I could do, I was going to do doing under super source. There we go. Hopefully that'll give you a bit of a better idea of you know, this is on the, the left side is the SDI output, and then this is the web output, just to give you a bit of a better idea. And then this is my profile that's controlling them. So sharpness, I think I had around that about 10. Sharpness limit was 0. Noise reduction 4. You don't want to go too much because you kind of like suddenly lose all this detail. Like it gets smoother and that kind of stuff, but it gets a little pasty too. But it can help just clean up a little bit of the noise. The H.264.5 compression, like sometimes that can clean up a bit of the noise too once it is going through to the web. Black pedestal, this is basically the contrast. So if I increase this here, or if I set it to 0, where's 0? Let's go 1. All right, so out of the box, this is what that is. And then if I increase it, I think I had it as minus, was it minus 50? I can't remember now. But, you know, I can make it really crunchy like that. Obviously way too much. And you can see in my hair, I've sort of lost all the details. So it's just, but then this looks a bit kind of pasty and gross. So it's just, this is probably one of the ones that will give you the most kind of finished look. So I think I had it about 50, just so that it's a little more contrasty across the image, but not too crunchy in the blacks. There you go, you can even go 100. We'll stick with that for now. The red and the blue, I've left that. The black gamma level, we can adjust that. Again, play with that at 0, and I just wanted to bring in a little more of the blacks here, maybe about 10. Okay, and then I've got activated the knee. I think it's really doing anything. I didn't really turn it on. Knee point 75. All right, so that's the image quality, my focus settings, and then I've got soft start and stop on the zoom. I've got the image stabilizing on, and then the presets. So what I will do, and I'll also say with the way my profile is set up, if you are using it, is that these first 8 on this page, they control the PTZ settings, but not these color settings. So if you want to save the color settings, then you would come into this secondary page and you've got up to 36 here. So this is where under this button here at the color is, for this show, a button that I've pressed, and now when I start up the studio, it just kind of automatically presses this so that my cameras are set to this lighting. I think a little bit more crunchy than I was before. Let's test this out. If I hit color, that's my normal kind of color settings that is now been put into this system using Companion. So what I would do when I get to a shoot is you set up your lighting and your look and your image how you want. You can do that through the adjust page here. So you can do gain, shutter, iris, white balance, set your focus. And so you can set those parameters on the Stream Deck, or if you want more of that sort of gamma control, you can come into the web settings to do that. And then once you've set your look, I would, so say 35, you know, I can hold it down and save it to a preset, just so I can recall it. But the advantage of not putting the color in these is that I don't have to go through these presets and resave very specific color gradients. So I can do one color grade on an image, and then these can be presets that are recalled without. So now I can come, you know, into this side of the desk, or I could come into that product shot that I have down here, or back up to a close-up, and I'm just affecting my PTZ, my pan, tilt, zoom, where the camera is pointing and where it's zoomed, as opposed to the image, how it looks. So you can control them separately, which is, you know, once you're in an event and lighting starts changing, like maybe you're in something where it is changing so much that you need to kind of put it more onto an auto setting or something so that it can adjust to big lighting changes, or maybe you do the lighting changes manually, but you don't want to have to put that into each preset. So these first 8 don't have them in there, and then the additional 9 to, I think it might be 11 to 36 will also save the color. If you're wondering what that looks like in Companion, it is under, let's call this number 2, and we can go save. I'm going to PTZ 1 save preset, like this. Okay, so all of my presets here, if you press them once, it recalls it, and if you long press it, it will save whatever the current settings are, which is this action. So I'm choosing my camera 1. I'm saying I want to save it to preset whatever, say preset 1, give it the preset name. You can actually, by default, it's pulling a variable, which is the last used preset here. But you could change that to just like straight text if you want. And then here you can unselect things that you don't want to save. So maybe you don't want to save the focus because you want it just to autofocus on the face. And you don't want it to save the exposure or the white balance, image stabilization, and the, I think it's color profile is CP. So you could deselect all of these, and now you have a button when you press it, which is just going to save the physical PTZ parameters rather than all of the camera imagery. So that's one way to set it up. Otherwise, if you do select all of these, then all of those settings that we put in here will be saved to it as well. So choose which path you want to go with that. All right, that should make sense. Let's go on to the final one, which is auto tracking, and this is how to expose the auto tracking commands in Companion, because we have a camera that can actually auto track. Did I turn it on? I think I did turn it on. There we go. So this is just sort of responding to me, and I can also pull up a preset to come into a certain shot size, and then the tracking will take over. So you can sort of use tracking alongside sort of manual commands. So my tracking is on, and as I move around, it's going to follow me, and then I can hit a wide shot. It's going to pull back to that preset, and then it will pick up my face and sort of, you know, keep on tracking with me. It also means if I can leave the camera somewhere, so I could be tracking on a face, and I could go over somewhere, and then I can turn off tracking, and so I've left it there locked if you want to do, you know, set it up like that. So this question comes from HJ82. Do I get this one? Pull it up. Who on GitHub was asking, the auto tracking lite application has been free to use for some time now. Any chance of getting it implemented into this wonderful Companion plugin, such as turning the tracking simply on or off? I can achieve this using custom commands. I could not find any documentation on this command. So I'm going to talk about that now because it's probably not intuitive right off the bat. But if we go over to the web, in Companion, when you go to your Connections tab up here, you can type in Canon PTZ, and you can add in, I'll just add that in, delete or demo, just so I remember to delete this one. You're going to add it in like this, and I'm just going to click on this and give it a label, like I gave my one PTZ, we can call that 7. I don't have a 7. And you can set your IP, and what you might not notice is that you actually need to turn on enable auto tracking features, and it should by default have this CGI add-on, like this is the location of where that app is, and 250 is kind of the default, which is what I use. It's going to delete this module, and if we go up to my actual module, You can see I've put in the IP address. I'm just auto detecting the camera, but these are all the cameras that you can use. I'm continue polling even in error state just to get better connection to the camera. And enable auto tracking is turned on, 250 verbose mode save. All right, so make sure you have turned that on, because if you go to, where are we? Go to buttons. We'll just delete this one. If you want to do an auto tracking button and we go down to PTZ1, none of these commands, if you don't turn on the auto tracking in the connections tab, then all of these commands won't be there. But there's actually the full paid version of Canon's tracking, I think it used to be $1,200. I think it's about $800 now as an additional add-on per camera, non-transferable. So it's $800 to put this into a N100, and it's also $800 to put it into a N700, which is kind of crazy. And also the fact that you can't transfer it, because if you have a camera that dies, then, you know, I think could be a better system. But that's what it is. But each camera now has sort of a lite version. So if you don't want to pay for the full $800, all the bells and whistles, you can get sort of basic tracking on the camera, including, you know, turning it on and off, and to some extent setting the frame size. And those, the free capabilities of the camera have been built into my Stream Deck profile. So I'll show you how to use that. But this is where, you know, auto zoom, recovery time, tilt, halting areas, restarting after manual operation, setting the display size, setting a silhouette, tracking range, view tracking range. Like there's a ton of stuff that we've built into this that can be controlled. I'm gonna come back to my view of my Stream Deck here. And so what I have is camera 1 is what I'm looking at here, which is this shot. And up here I have auto tracking on. And so then I can go over here and I can turn it off. And now it's not auto tracking. So very easy to turn that on and off and have that sort of button feedback on there. There's a couple of things you might want to know, which is if you go into settings, let me go to the right shot here. Let me bring up this one. Where was I? So from your camera page, go to settings, you have to log in, and you go to system, I think it is, yeah, and add-on, and you'll need to go to Canon's website and download the auto tracking application file, and then you'll come in here, click on that, and you will install it into the camera as additional firmware. And then you need to, this will be stopped, but you can click run to run. You have a trial license here. If you want to run a trial license of the full tracking capabilities for 30 days, you can enable that every time, the first time you buy a camera. I have tried it and that has expired, and so now I'm outside the validity period here. But there's still the basic version that you can have, but you do need to install this. So I've got you have to start it, and then you probably want to do automatic startup here, turn this one on of this add-on top page, and then if you click open, now you're in the tracking interface of it. Is where you can control things here. So auto tracking, I come back to my super source and go to my camera. If I turn on auto tracking on the Stream Deck, you'll see that's where it has turned it on within the camera app. And if I turn it off in the camera app, it's turned it off on the Stream Deck. So it's sort of, you know, it knows in between it. There's a ton of settings. Where are we? Like all these settings are locked. So I'm not even gonna go into them. But it's a very confusing app, I think. I can't even, okay, where are we? Okay, so we can, I'm just gonna get back to a mid shot. We can turn on auto tracking We can set the display size, but there's only 2 and 4 other sizes that you have if you want display size. And I don't think you can't even move this silhouette. So sometimes the challenge with this can be, it doesn't, like the headroom here, like you can't change the headroom because the silhouette, display position, silhouettes is locked. So on the free version, I don't know, it's really only the tighter one here. Like if it works well in this kind of shot. Oop, I'm gonna do my hands. So it will adjust that way. But I usually just have that off. But you'll see down here, this is built into the Stream Deck as well in terms of close on or off. So I can turn that off, on, or wide or close is what I've got here, or hold it down to turn it off. And then the other one is there's a lost recovery mode that you can set. So if you walk out of frame, it will recover. And then you can also set the lost frame here. So if I was over here and I could, set the lost frame, just press that button and it'll set it to that frame, so that if I'm lost, I'm not going to duck down, but if I go too quickly out of frame, after 2 seconds is what I've set it to, it's going to go back to that lost frame. So you might want it as a a wider shot for your lost frame that it's going to come back to. Let me just turn that one off. What I've found is I really just have all that other stuff off, and then I'm using a mixture of presets and turning tracking on and off. So maybe I've got a panel on a wide shot and tracking is off, and then in the Stream Deck I can have commands where I've sort of come into a close-up on someone, and then I've enabled tracking, and you can kind of build that into companion buttons if you want to sort of further modify it, and so that as they move around they are being tracked. But then you could, I need a second person here, but you could have another close-up which is on another person's seated position. It works best with presets. And then that could, let's just, they just say they're sitting down here. Then the preset would take them down here, and it would try and find a face. And obviously there's no face there, and I could jump back to the other person. So that's where I think the lite version can work kind of well with that. All right, we are almost at time. Let me just jump back to, I think I explained everything there with the tracking, turning it on, and enabling it. Yeah, I think we got all of that. Let me see here. I've still got my tracking on, I see. We'll stick with it on. Jay says, these in-depth tutorials are very helpful, especially the Canon PTZ users like myself who want to learn instead of just how it works, instead of just using a pre-made plugin. So hopefully that will give you an idea of how to customize this for the uses that you need, because I think what is really great is when you can, I quite like the pre-built box that I've done, and I use that for events, and I built it in a way that I can use any camera out of the box. But then, of course, building in other equipment into Companion is one of the powerful things about that. All right, let's turn off tracking, hey? Otherwise, it's gonna pull back to tracking. All right, well, that's all we have for the show today. If you like that, go to davidjoshua4.com is where you can find my Canon PTZ profiles that are pre-built, so you can run a whole show and integrate it with things like the ATEM for switching. Until next week, take care, and I shall see you then. Bye.